within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers. I'm Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. We try to be a beacon of sanity in an ocean of progressivism. I'm out here on the far left coast, and I'm here to tell you that you can't throw a stick without hitting a communist. So, with that said, I really do appreciate you guys tuning in today. As I've said before, this is not my show. This is your show. This is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement, and it can't function without you. So I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to get involved and for your patriotism. So with that said, the date is April 6th, 2014, and we've got a really good show in store for you. At about 5:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, my time, we'll be joined by a special guest and host of the show, Thunder from Down Under, Matthew Virgiin. So I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different topics, such as child protective service issues, the kidnapping and indoctrination of our children, and also topics such as Common Core are going to come up. So whatever else that you guys would like to come up and talk about as well is open, and our phone lines are open. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And like I said, whatever you guys would like to talk about, the phone lines are open, and we will be taking your listener calls and reading your emails as well. So don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. We have a store at our website, onthemoveshow.com, and you can click on the shop link there on our website. It's on the homepage. We got hundreds of products for sale on there. It ranges from t-shirts, freeze-dried food, books I recommend reading, bumper stickers, a whole bunch of different stuff is on there. And all your purchases will go towards making our show bigger and better. So, I really want to thank you guys for your support. And like I said, anything you go on there you buy on there goes a long way towards helping the program. So we really do appreciate it. Anyway, I just want to give you guys an update again. We are doing a segment on Sounding Off with Tank and Tony every Friday at 7:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can listen to the show, check out the show at blogtalkradio.com/Sounding Off with Tank and Tony. Like I said, I do a weekly segment on there every Friday at 7:15 p.m. Their show starts at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, all right, so now we're moving on. We're moving forward here into the first segment of the show. We do it every week, and here it is.
This day in history.
Because people have got to know whether or not the president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yesterday,
what the country can do for you.
December 1941.
And the people who knocked these buildings down.
A date which will live
in
infamy.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Okay, so this is the segment of the show called This Day in History. We like to look back in time and see what happened on this day in history. So on April 6, 1917, the United States declared war on the Empire of Germany. And 4 days earlier at that point, April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson asked a special joint session of Congress for this declaration. In the Senate, the resolution passed 82-6. 8 senators did not vote. And in the House, the resolution had a vote of 373 for it and 50 opposed to it, with nine representatives who decided not to vote on it. So the declaration read, whereas the Imperial German government has committed repeated acts of war against the government and the people of the United States of America, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States and America in Congress assembled, that the state of war between the United States and the Imperial German government, which has thus been thrust upon the United States is hereby formally declared, and that the President be and is hereby authorized to directed to employ the entire naval and military forces of the United States and the resources of the government to carry on war against the Imperial German government, and to bring the conflict to a successful termination, all the resources of the country, and hereby pledged by Congress of the United States. So with that, America entered the First War, and it ended on 11 November 1918 with Germany's surrender. And the peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, was signed on June 29, 1919, and that basically brought the war officially to an end. It was signed by the Germany and the Allied nations, which included Britain, France, Italy, and Russia. So anyway, we're moving on. That's this day in history. If you want to join the conversation today, you can give us a call at 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So now we're moving to my favorite part of the show, and we like to call it the Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, this is a segment that we report about armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, and themselves. So our first Weekly Defender we found on the Bismarck Tribune. Jeff Gegelman was at home in Golden Valley, North Dakota, when 3 men in a car drove onto his property, then knocked on his door. Gegelman was suspicious, and he retrieved his .22 caliber handgun and watched as the men returned to their vehicle. And then as two of those men returned to the house, the pair of men forced open the door, at which point Gegelman leveled his gun at the intruders and told him, "You came to the wrong house today." Gegelman and the home invaders exchanged fire, resulting in wounds to both Gegelman and one of the intruders. Following the exchange, the criminals fled, but not before Gegelman was able to record the license plate of the car that they were driving. Police captured the wounded home invader a short time later as he was seeking medical attention. Gegelman has been released from the hospital and told a local news outlet that he intends to acquire a bigger gun with more bullets. And this happened on the 31st of March, so this is very recent. Anyway, I'd like to shake this guy's hand. I think that it's funny that he had like a witty retort as they're kicking in his door. He says, "You came to the wrong house today." So good job, man. And I hope he does get a bigger gun, because honestly, a .22 caliber bullet, it's not going to knock somebody down. So he's lucky that they didn't kill him, and he's lucky that the situation ended up the way it did. So. But yeah, I definitely think that he should get a bigger gun. So our next Weekly Defender we found on Access, North Georgia. A fugitive on the run from the law in Stevens County, Georgia, broke into a store and approached a woman inside. The woman responded to the threat by retrieving a handgun and firing at the wanted man, causing him to flee. Following the encounter with the armed citizen, the fugitive was captured by law enforcement. Stevens County Sheriff Randy Shirley said of the armed woman, "Good job to the brave female who was on her property minding her own business." And this happened on the 2nd of April, so that's just the other day. Pretty scary stuff. That situation could have turned out a whole lot worse for that woman, so it's really good that she did have a firearm. And a lot of people don't really think about it, but firearms are the great equalizer. It takes people that wouldn't be able to defend themselves against a threat and makes it so that they're now able to. This situation could have ended way, way worse, and I'm really happy that to hear that it ended this way. So good job for that. So we love hearing about how law-abiding citizens use firearms to protect themselves. You have a right to defend your life. You have a right to defend your family, and you also have a right to defend your freedom. We at On The Move, we support your rights, and if you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself, or you'd like to comment on one of the stories that we're talking about, we'd like to hear from you. So give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and we'll read your story on the air. So anyway, we have another segment here coming up here, and it's called the Mack Attack, and it's a segment where I like to talk about outrageous events in the news, and I'll give you my take on it. So here we go. So I just want to point out the fact that a listener in the chat room said that a .22 caliber can easily kill someone, and that's absolutely true. It can easily kill somebody, but it's very likely that it'll easily kill somebody 2 hours from now, a half hour from now. It's not going to knock somebody on their butt like a .45 caliber round will. So though you are right, it's not the best defensive weapon. Anyway, moving on into the Mack attack. I would like to point out that on April 2nd, 2014, there was a shooting again at Fort Hood. It resulted in 3 dead and 16 wounded. And that was bad enough as it is. That's a horrible, tragic event. But what's even worse is once again, Harry Reid is shamelessly using these kind of tragedies to attack gun rights again. Just hours after the tragedy in Fort Hood, Reid was quoted in the Washington Post calling on Congress to pass more gun control. Specifically, Reid called for the passage of these like so-called universal background checks, and they're basically national gun registration. He said, "I would like to bring that up. I'd like to bring that back up." So he's trying to basically spin the tragedy, never let a tragedy go to waste. You know, and that seems to be like a progressive motto. It's a mantra that they go by. So, you know, this tragedy could have been prevented, and in my opinion, it should have been prevented. This is the second time in 5 years that there's a shooting at Fort Hood, and you may be asking yourself, how could this happen again? And I will tell you, because ever since the Clinton administration, we have disarmed our troops on military installations. No one is allowed to conceal carry on military bases unless they have some kind of letter from the base commander proving that there will be loss of life or damage to property if they don't conceal carry for duty purposes. And really the only people that do that are, you know, Office of Special Investigations, things like that, people that do kind of like investigative work. So really, there's very few people on base that are allowed to conceal carry. And we're disarming our troops when they come to work. So it's bad enough that when, you know, I'm at work, if I work in the military, I can't conceal carry or carry while I'm on duty. I'm not given the option. But on top of that, when they're coming to work and when they're leaving work, if they live off base, they are disarmed. They're vulnerable. You know, we're allowing them, while they're at work, to also be soft targets in a gun-free zone. And I've said it before, you know, people get this impression, and I had the same impression from movies and everything like that military bases are, everybody's walking around in formation and they got guns on their shoulder, and there's hundreds of people, you know, at all times with guns. Every single person in uniform has a gun. But that's not what it's like. What it's really like is there's only a handful of people on base doing security. There may be 45 people on a big base doing security. And out of those people that are the base police, basically, those people are armed. Not all of them are armed with rifles. Some of them only are armed with pistols, some sidearms. And then if something kicks off, people respond and they go to the armory and they arm up, and then it takes a while. The whole process takes a while. So, I mean, obviously, you know, if I'm off base and I got a call saying, hey, you need to respond to a security incident, report to the armory, you know, I could be, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes away just from the armory. And then at that point, I arm up and then I go respond to the threat. That's not really helping the situation. That's not making anybody safer. That's cleaning up. That's mopping up a security situation. So with that said, you know, only a few people on the bases are actually armed. And we have people coming and going on these bases. They're living in base housing. You know, they're all over the place. There's lots of traffic going in and out of these bases. So it's not possible for us to search everyone. You know, this guy came on the base with a .45 caliber handgun. All right, that's not that big of a gun. It's not like a shotgun. It's not like he's walking around with a rifle or anything. It's a small gun. It's easily concealable. So nothing could have stopped this man from getting on base with a gun. And let me just point out the fact that even if they searched everything and everyone coming in and out of the base, all right, if they implemented FPCON Delta techniques, which it's the highest level of security that you can get on for the base, and it's basically they stop traffic. They did this after 9/11. So if they stop traffic and they're searching every bag, every car, every trunk, every glove compartment, giving you a pat down, wanding you with the metal detector and stuff to see if you're hiding anything on your person, if they were doing all of these techniques, it still wouldn't have stopped anything. And I will tell you why. Because you're allowed to bring a gun on base. You may not know that, but you are allowed to bring a gun on military installations. The only requirement is that it has to be registered, or it has to go straight to the armory. So people living on base, they can have their weapon in base housing. They just can't conceal carry it or take it out, and carry it around openly or anything like that. So, if at that point, if you have your gun on base, or you're trying to take your gun straight to the armory, that's allowed. And if you're having the armory store your weapon for you, those are fine. So how could we stop somebody from coming on base and just saying, yeah, I'm taking it to the armory, drop it off, or yeah, I'm taking it to go get registered right now? So there's no way. That's the answer to that. There's actually no way to stop somebody from getting on base with a gun. And the answer has never been to make it impossible through security measures to do something like this. The answer should be to make it impossible to get away with it, to make it impossible to get more than just a few bullets off, basically. So what's the answer? Is it more security guards? Should we put a guard in every office building? I don't think that's a right solution, but I don't think it would hurt either. I mean, if we could afford to do that, that'd be fine, but I don't think that we can. So what I think that we should do is to arm our people on duty. We got men and women in uniform that are getting shot. Why? It's unnecessary. These people are trained to shoot firearms. Everyone that goes through basic training is trained to shoot firearms, and they have to qualify year after year. So why are we not arming them? They're at work. It's not even like it's a controversial issue. These people are in the military, and they're at work on duty. Why aren't they armed? At minimum, we should at least allow our troops to be armed during their duty hours, but they're not even allowed to in a lot of these cases. If they work an office job, they're not allowed to arm up. So we could require that each office have somebody who's armed, like a security officer or something like that, and that person could be armed. Or at the bare minimum, in my opinion, they should have access to a safe with a weapon in it. I mean, and I still don't think that's enough, because you got to go over, open up the safe, get the weapon out, load it, and then respond to the threat. By the time you realize that somebody's pulled out a .45 caliber handgun and they're shooting at you, the threat's a little bit too much in your face to do much about it when it comes to a safe anyway. So, I think that is, though, at least a bare minimum of what we should be doing, because people could get to the gun if they hear fire in another office or something, and then they could defend themselves. So that would stop it. In my opinion, I think that's the answer, and all of that would be great. But I think that the best solution I see is to allow our troops to conceal carry on base, because conceal carrying, it deters crime, and there's statistics out there that show it. Everywhere that gun laws have laxed, and you see that concealed carry is now allowed, or constitutional carry is allowed, crime rates drop. It's a fact. So with this, criminals won't even know where people are armed up, and it'll make them think twice. That they may not know how many people in an office are armed. Rather than being armed for duty and having it openly displayed, people could have it concealed carried, and no one would be the wiser. So why don't we as a country, instead of doing the same things over and over and over again, expecting to get some kind of different result, we change it up? Because I'm pretty sure that doing those same things over and over again and expecting different results, I think that's the definition of insanity. So I'd like to know what you guys have to say on this. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com and give us your take on it. But at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
And we're back. I appreciate you guys sticking with us. So I'd like to take a moment and talk about the gun rally that I went to on Saturday. And its purpose was to show support for Connecticut gun owners and to raise awareness about gun control that's going through in Washington State. And in particular, it was I-594. So I-594, it's really, really crazy. I mean, this gun control is set up now to where if I want to hand you a gun to train you on this gun, or as a gift to you, or whatever, I mean, even if I just want to give you my gun to go shoot, all right? If I want to allow you to go shoot my gun, I am required, according to I-594, to do a background check on you. I mean, this is ridiculous. The kind of legalities that they're trying to throw at us, and the laws that they're trying to impose, are all trying to be used as a way of regulating criminal activity. Okay, so let's do a little exercise here, a little intellectual exercise. Do we really believe that a criminal who just stole a firearm and is now selling that firearm to another criminal to use in a criminal act, do we really think that that criminal is going to be stopped by a piece of paper saying it's illegal for them to do this without a background check? I'm going to say no, because criminals, by definition, break laws. And the fact that they broke all these laws to get to this point, do we really think that one more law, one more piece of paper is going to prevent somebody from breaking that law? No, it's a piece of paper. The laws don't mean anything to these people because they break those laws. They don't care about laws. They're lawbreakers. They're criminals, and by definition, they don't care what goes on. The only thing that this is going to do is take guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands, like you and me. That's the only thing it's designed to do. Because who's gonna submit to this? The law-abiding citizens. And everyone that doesn't submit to this, they're now criminals. So by that definition, it will only do that. So, to me, it blows me away. It's this lack of really critical thinking that comes from the left that thinks that if they pass a law, that suddenly people will be safer. They don't seem to understand. And it comes down to this whole thing that happened in Fort Hood as well. Is you pass a regulation that's supposed to keep guns out of the base and keep people safer. That's what it was originally passed for, is to make people safe. If people can't have guns, the left thinks that people are safe. And I would counter that argument and say, no, when people can't have guns, people aren't safe. So that's the whole argument there, left and right. But to me, there's statistics to pass it to actually back up what I'm saying, and not only that, but I have a right to defend myself. I have an absolute right, and it doesn't matter what your little piece of paper says. If I am in a situation, I'm going to defend myself. And I know everybody hears all these sayings of like, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And those things are absolutely right. There's a kernel of truth to all these things. A lot of people feel the same way as far as saying screw it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Some people think that concealed carrying without a permit or in places that they're not allowed is something that they're going to do. I'm not necessarily advocating that. I don't support breaking the law. I am a law-abiding citizen. So with that in mind, it's important to know your gun laws, but it's really, really important that we all learn what is coming down the pipe. So like I-594, okay, that's not here yet. All right, we can still do something about it. We can block this thing. We can contact our members of Congress. We can, write our representatives. All these things are really important that we do and block it. Because this law, in my opinion, is unconstitutional, and not just for what I've listed. But anyway, this is some of the stuff that we talked about at the gun rights rally on Saturday. So there was a bunch of different speakers there. There was Carlton Black, who's a U.S. veteran, Chris Rockhold. He's running for the Washington State Legislature, District 17, I think. And Sean Emerson, who's a veteran and an author, he gave a great speech. Graham Hunt, who's a 2nd District Washington representative. And let's see, Jacob Kukuk, he's a Second Amendment enforcer. Olin Acostas, he's Libertarian Motorcycle Club and Oath Keepers. Stephen Nielsen, Robert J. Sutherland Jr., Phil Watsons, Rick Halley, which, by the way, Rick Halley, he put on the whole event. He's with the Gun Rights Coalition, and I got to really say he did a great job on everything, hosting the event, organizing it. There's a lot of support that came out to do that, and I got to give Rick Halley his big thumbs up. A lot of props for doing that event. And anyway, Gavin Syme, he was on and he did a speech. I really like Gavin. He's running for the 4th congressional district candidate here in Washington. I'm going to see if I can get him on the show, by the way, because I really think he's got a strong message, and I like what he has to say. So anyway, we also had Robert Stratton of Open Carry, Washington, who gave a speech, and I got video of all the speeches. I'm going to go ahead and post it on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/OnTheMoveShow, and you guys can, people who couldn't make it, people who aren't in Washington, you can still, go on there and check it out and see what was all said, because there's a lot of really good speakers there, and I had a really good time meeting everybody. Meeting a lot of new people, a lot of old friends were there, so it was a really good event. It was hosted in Olympia at the Capitol, right there on the ground, so I was really excited to be there. Again, I'm not from Washington originally, so I haven't even been up to Olympia to see the Capitol up until yesterday, so that was really fun for me. It was a pretty cool treat, and I know a lot of people were going in with their firearms, doing tours of the Capitol building, so that was pretty cool. I really like that. So, but anyway, we are going to be having a guest here on the show in a little bit, and his name is Matthew Virgiin, and I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to be talking, like I said, about CPS issues and other stuff like that. Oh, actually, you know what? I see here we have a caller. I'm going to go ahead and take this call. We got Nick here on the line. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes, I can.
Hey, how you doing? I'm pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Staying warm here in Minnesota, so.
Oh, okay.
As much
so
as we
what's
can.
On your mind?
Well, I was listening to you talk about the Fort Hood shooting, and and asked the question, okay, why are our active service members not armed? I mean, this is a military base. I mean, what if a foreign country came and started bombing, an Air Force base or something like that, and all the soldiers, they'd have nothing. They'd have to run to the armory. But I do remember, because I went to Army boot camp back in 2000. I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, infantry training, and well, the one thing is we could not keep our M16s within the barracks. And when we asked why not, the drill sergeant basically pointed to Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, yeah. So he's saying that somebody's going to go crazy and end up shooting somebody.
Well, yeah, because we did have quite a few people that... Yeah, well, I mean, you get in the military, and drill sergeants, they can get on your nerves, and but that there's a reason they're doing this. But some people actually went as far as to say actually make the threat, oh, I'm going to kill my drill sergeant. Well, boom, right there. As soon as they say that, they're out, they're put on KP for like 3-4 weeks or whatever, and eventually kicked out of boot camp. But that's why they don't keep the M16s within the barracks, because they used to, you used to be able to sleep with your M16, your rifle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you know, my thought on this whole thing, all right, I can understand to a degree. I disagree with it, but I understand them wanting to remove the M16s from the barracks. My thought on this, though, is if they're on duty, though, if they're on duty at work, why can't they be armed? It just makes sense. And I totally agree with what you're saying. And by the way, I'd like to point out, thank you for your service. I do appreciate that. But it's as far as for being at work, you know, if something kicks off, you know, if everybody is currently armed, it kills response time. I mean, there's no response time at that point. People are already there, already armed, and they're able to take on the threat. And for me, if you have the argument of, you know, oh, well, somebody could go crazy and go shooting people and killing people, well, somebody can go crazy and go stabbing people and hitting people with baseball bats and things like that. So are you going to take away knives? Are you going to take away baseball bats? No. There's no way. You're not going to be able to remove somebody's fists from their hands. So there's no way to guarantee my safety. So when you disarm me, you've taken away a way for me to defend myself. I don't care if the bad guys have guns, as long as I got guns too. That's what I care about.
Yeah, exactly. And even according to one of the Wisconsin sheriffs, it's been widely publicized as they're saying, hey, yeah, go out and get yourself a gun, because the police are not there to stop crime. They're there to investigate crime and maybe prevent it. But ultimately, it comes down. I'm just talking average Joe citizen now. Not just, and this goes for Army personnel as well, but, when stuff happens, like you were just saying, you don't have time to react. You don't have time to call in reinforcements. You need the firepower right then, right now. How many lives would have been saved if, someone actually was armed? Or what if there was actually an armed faculty member at Sandy Hook? Would there have been any killings there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, and even if it failed, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Like, for example, I've heard people say that there were armed guards at Columbine, but at least it's a deterrent at the very least. So, I mean, it's kind of upsetting that people don't seem to understand that having a firearm it protects people. I mean, honestly, not only just it physically, can stop and take out a threat, eliminate the threat, but it actually is a deterrent. If people see a gun, it's not a soft target. And when we look at things like, police stations, for example, or airports, when's the last time that an airport was successfully attacked? I think there was one where a TSA guy came in or something not too long ago. I think I heard that on the news not too long ago. But those threats are taken out almost immediately. And last I checked, I don't think TSA actually has guns. So,
not
right
yet.
there. Yeah. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, the TSA may not have guns, but then again, you have Obama administration basically giving the National Weather Service ammunition. Why they need that, I don't know. But
yeah,
well, it's just a new way of fighting storms.
Yeah, we got IRS arming up and stuff like that too. So I mean, it's pretty crazy that the amount of firearms that are being spread out through the government to be used for reasons we don't know. But to me, it seems like a pretty simple solution to protect the military's most valuable resource, arguably the most valuable resource that we have, period, is our men and women. So if we're not going to protect them like we would gold or we would money in a bank or any other valuable resource, our nuclear weapons for crying out loud, if we're not going to protect them in the same fashion, then what are we doing? And we're going to have a really difficult time convincing people to join the military if we're not going to protect them and allow them to protect themselves. Why would we put somebody in a situation to fight for us but take away their rights at the same time? To me, it doesn't make sense. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. But I don't know who would want to join the military now, especially, with veterans benefits being cut. Soldiers can't, worship the religion that they want to, example, Christianity, stuff like that. So in this day and age, I wouldn't say it's a good idea to go into the military. I mean, at least not this time, not in this administration. But I think now is more of it's time for the citizen military, the militia, to start forming up, and it's time, at least I believe, it's time for the American people to stand up and shout out in one voice, we're not going to take this anymore. You're not speaking for us. This is our country, not yours. And it just take over. That's what I honestly think is going to happen. When it's going to happen, I don't know. Who's going to force it? My guess is Obama. But, and just recently, actually today, I was just reading an article, actually watching a movie. It was from the Republican Governors Association. Governor Rick Perry from Texas was talking about how Obama was threatening, both Republican and Democratic governors, basically saying if you come out and say something against the administration or wasteful spending or whatever, I'm coming after you. That's what he said. And he's actually talking about dismantling the National Guard.
Really? I haven't heard anything about that. I'm going to have to do some more research on this one.
It just happened. Rick Perry basically commented on what the president said. I mean, there's nothing with Obama saying this, but Rick Perry basically, he just, summing up what the president said, and that he wants to dismantle or reduce our National Guard. It's like, why? I mean, especially in this time in our lives, where you got Russia, you got Syria, Israel. I mean, we're on the brink of World War III.
Well, the fact is, Joe, I don't think that he has the authority anyway to break up the National Guard, because that's state. That's the state government. So that's operated by the governor.
But he's threatening the governors, basically saying, hey, if you give me flack, you'll be sorry.
Yeah.
So,
I'll look into this some more. I'd like if this is true, I'd like to look into this a lot more and maybe talk about it on the show. I have another question for you though, Nick. I've been hearing a lot of different things going on as far as the way that they're defining what mental health regulations that they're going to impose on our veterans, basically. And this last guy, this Fort Hood shooter, that there's been a lot of talk about his mental status and things like that. And my concern, I'm hearing quite a lot of talk about, people saying that, oh, well, if you're diagnosed with PTSD, you should lose your right to bear arms. And I am so against this. I can't even begin to put into words how against that I am, because I don't think that just because you have PTSD, that means that you're violent. And for my listeners out there, for those of you who don't know what PTSD is, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. So let's say you were involved in a firefight, you were deployed into Iraq or something, you're involved in a firefight, and you're having some stress and maybe some flashbacks on the event and things like that, or you saw some horrible things over there, and you're just having a hard time with it. You can get diagnosed with PTSD, and now they're trying to tell you that you can't bear arms, or they want to take away your right to bear arms just because you're struggling with some stuff that you saw over there. What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Well, it's funny you bring up PTSD, because I actually have PTSD, and it is not necessarily do you get it from a firefight or it's any stressful situation. I mean, if you grew up in an abusive home, you could have PTSD from that. But do I think people with PTSD should have guns? Yeah, they should. I mean, they're Americans. Why not? I mean, yeah, okay. They have flashbacks. They've been through traumatic situations. Okay, I understand that. But you don't take their guns away. I mean, the Second Amendment states that Congress shall not make any laws or whatever, that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Doesn't say anything about mental health, doesn't say anything about criminal record, doesn't say anything about that. So if the federal government or the states are going to restrict or tell veterans, especially if they have a diagnosis of PTSD, that they cannot own firearms, then they are violating their Second Amendment right.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Whether
sorry, go ahead, man. I don't mean it's a delay on Blog Talk Radio, so it's hard to tell.
I know. I used to be on Blog Talk Radio a while ago, so trust me, I know. But it's an infringement on the Second Amendment right. Whether the state or the federal government does it. Plain and simple.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think also, like I was saying, we need to get people in our military. Obviously, it's important to have the right incentives to get people to join. And these people, they're fighting for us. So why would you want to punish somebody who fought for you by taking away their rights? And then more importantly, why would somebody want to fight for you if they risk losing their rights at that same time? And on top of that, it's difficult enough to get people in the military to self-report things that they're having trouble with and not just lie about their mental health situation, because it goes on their permanent record in the military, and that can affect things like promotion or getting a different position, a different job position or something like that. So these things are really, really important for us to actually keep in mind. If we make it easier and less of a scary situation, less reprisal for people who self-report, things like that, then I think it's going to be overall a better mental health situation for people in our military. But this kind of goes back to what I was saying. I don't care if criminals have guns. I absolutely do not care. And the reason for it is because criminals will have guns. No matter what piece of paper that we pass in Congress, no matter what laws are passed, criminals will have guns. So at that point, I just want everyone to be able to get a gun, because that way it makes the playing field fair. But I really appreciate your call, Nick, and it was great to have you on. At this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Matthew Virgiin.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
All right, we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. All right, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you guys to Matthew Virgiin. He's the host of the show Thunder from Down Under, and you can watch his live video stream from his show at 4cast.tv. That's the number 4cast.tv, not .com. Are you there, Matt?
Yeah, I am, Mack. How are you going?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, first of all. So if you take the opportunity, describe what you kind of do on your show and a lot of the stuff that you talk about to my listeners.
What we cover on the show is we help people dealing with child protection services corruption, and so we try and get as many stories out there as possible, because obviously the mainstream media is very strict at what they do, so they refuse to touch it. So every week I do a catch-up on what I've been doing, and we have someone else for half an hour, one of our parents, just describing what's going on with their case and what's going on and where it stands and that sort of thing. It's sort of like a media coverage where the mainstream media won't touch.
I understand. Okay, so as far as forecast.tv, I want to just clarify on this. Is that your specific website, or is that like a radio host thing that like where multiple networks or multiple radio shows go to network?
It's owned by a gentleman by the name of Jerry McMullen. You can find him on Facebook. He lives in a World War II bunker, actually, out there in Colorado, and he's put a big radio tower in there, and it's his network, and he actually has several shows. Mine is one of many.
Holy cow!
And,
I actually know exactly where that is. That's funny. When I was in the military, we'd drive out to the missile fields and stuff, and I'd pass that all the time, and I never knew who lived there, but that's crazy. I actually know somebody now who lives there. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll send you his Facebook link when we're done with the show.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I went and stayed out there for a week the other week, so it was very interesting. It doesn't look like a bunker anymore. It looks like a 5-star hotel.
Yeah. So as far as you guys recording, are you guys all recording? Because from what I saw forecast on their YouTube and everything, it all looks like it's like in the same location. So are you guys all there?
No, I report in from wherever I am, and they bring me. But yeah, no, they're there at the bunker where the show's filmed live. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So where else can my listeners hear more about what you talk about specifically, like for your show?
Probably on my Facebook page. It's the best place, or really go into any parental rights groups on Facebook. You know, there's a few thousand of them, so it's not too hard to find a anti-child protection services group, because they've done this to too many people now, so it should be pretty easy to find out what's going on. Plus, I post regularly in your group and also in Americans United Against Tyranny as well, which is run by Michael Hutton.
Okay, so as far as some of the issues that you've been dealing with, and I know you guys have some fights that are on the horizon for you, and you're trying to prevent from happening. What's some of the stuff that's going on?
I'll start at the beginning, and the beginning is what happened was back in 1997, Bill Clinton passed a bill called the Title IV Funding Social Security Adoption Incentives Act, and it was based off a bill that Jimmy Carter proposed in the 1980s. And what that basically means is that for every time Child Protection Services terminates parental rights, they get an incentive of $4,000 for every child that they adopt out. So you can imagine what that's doing. Your government being paid money to take something. Yeah.
I mean, you're incentivizing kidnapping at that point, basically.
That is correct. Now, we are a neutral party. Obviously, I'm a volunteer on the board of directors of a non-for-profit. People are probably listening saying, he doesn't sound American. No, I'm not American. I'm actually Australian. I've come all the way over here from my country to help the families over here, because it's not just a problem in America. It's also a problem in Australia, the UK, Canada. This is a worldwide thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing especially is when you start monetarily incentivizing things within the government, it absolutely leads to fraud, waste, and abuse. And I've seen this personally. I'm sure you've seen it tons of times. But it makes sense that people will try to exploit and abuse those situations in order to make money. Even if it's only money for their particular office or whatever. I think that's a terrible idea to do. So what are some of the cases that you're dealing with right now?
Some of the cases, we're not attorneys, we're advocates. So, we give people advice, but we don't give out legal advice. But we work very closely with a couple of attorneys that, point us in the right direction in that. And we're also affiliated with several other organizations. And every year, the organization I'm with, which is We the People Family Preservation Incorporated, we hold a congressional panel in D.C., which is coming up in 4 days, where we speak in front of Congress and tell them about this problem and try and get reform. But some of the cases I personally deal with, there is a lot of them, there's a lot of people out there saying that they're helping, but they don't know what to do. So, I have a very large caseload, so to speak, of people that I'm helping, and they range from everywhere around the States, in the UK, a couple in Canada, some in Australia, but the main focus is the United States, because everyone around the world build the base off over here. So I have a range of cases from someone being accused of spanking their child, so that was child abuse, all the way to CPS actually suing a parent for their children over here in Texas, where I am at the moment.
Yeah, see, for that, and I've heard so many different stories. Like there was a young girl who had a disease, and she was diagnosed by a really prestigious hospital with this disease, and then they went to a different hospital. Their family took her to a different hospital at some point, and the doctor disagreed with the treatment that she was receiving. They said that this disorder doesn't exist. I wish I could remember the person's name and everything. I'm just remembering this from what's going on. They basically disagreed with the original doctor, and then at that point they said that they were medically mistreating this girl, and they basically kidnapped her. It's state-sponsored kidnapping in this situation, and the parents can't do anything. This girl's health has deteriorated since the state has taken custody of her, because they're not treating her for her disorder. They don't believe that it's a real thing, apparently, even though a prestigious hospital has already diagnosed with her with that. But they've been fighting this for a long time, and I know a lot of stuff like this happens. I'm sure you see a lot of it.
Constantly. That's all I do now. Constantly,
yeah.
Every day. And every day we're researching and looking at different ways to use the system to protect the people that it was put in place to protect. Like, there was a particular case I come across in Tennessee where what happened was the child there was suspected domestic violence against the mother and the child. So Child Protection Services stepped in and they said, okay, well, either you need to leave, or we're going to take your child. So she explained to them that, where am I going to go? My husband, he supplies everything. He works for us. I have nowhere else to go. I have no relatives in that. So they turned around and they said, well, we have a program for people just like you that are victims of domestic violence. So if you come to one of our shelters, we will protect you and make sure you have everything you need until you can get settled. Well, foolishly, she believed them, went into the shelter, and then Child Protection Services stepped in, took her child, and said that she was homeless.
Oh, wow.
So they set her up.
Yeah. This is crazy. This is the kind of stuff that happens a lot, though. And you see, I see like CPS and stuff, and I've heard so many horror stories about how CPS is used to basically threaten people of stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with it. Like, for example, there was a guy I heard recently. He was out at some kind of Impeach Obama event, and he was holding a sign on an overpass, and he had his children with him. And the officer said that if he didn't leave, not only was he going to arrest him, but he was going to send his kids to CPS. So, that right there is obviously it's a violation of free speech, but it's crazy that this kind of thing is being used to threaten people and manipulate people, and coerce people into backing down from the government. So, it's a scary thought that this kind of thing, that, the government can use your children, and threaten your children. But I think what's even more scary is the collectivization that we hear. We hear people all the time saying how, your children don't belong to you. They're basically twisting the term of it takes a village to raise a child. They're basically trying to use it as, your kids don't belong to you at all. And in fact, I got a clip here of one of the crazy hosts off of MSNBC, Melissa Harris Perry. She's talking about how your kids don't belong to you. Here it is. We'll be right back.
We have never invested as much in public education as we should have because we've always had kind of a private notion of children. Your kid is yours and totally your responsibility. We haven't had a very collective notion of these are our children. So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities. Once it's everybody's responsibility and not just the household, then we start making better investments.
That is unbelievable. Your kids don't belong to you. What do you think about that, Matt?
I think that it's getting to the point where it seems that's true, because if Child Protection Services can walk in with a whim and take them without prior investigation, that it's true. Your children belong to the state.
Yeah, well, I think that just because you can take something, that doesn't mean that it's yours. And I think obviously we're getting to the point where the government is seizing that authority, even though that they have the authority to do it. That doesn't mean that they have the right. So, go ahead.
Sorry to interject, but I was listening to the show about 20 minutes ago, and I understand you were talking on the subject of Obamacare. You see, with Child Protection Services, it comes under the Health Care Act, the Department of Human Services, which covers Obamacare, Medicaid, hospitals, schools, Child Protection Services. They all come under the one department. And as I was talking about Title IV funding before, a lot of people are unaware that in the Medicaid bill that got passed, there's Title V funding now. And what that basically is that there is a stereotype or a group of people where CPS can walk into your house and do an investigation and take your kids without a warrant, without prior consent, without even warning you. And the stereotypes are ridiculous. If you're a parent under the age of 21, if you're a tobacco user, if you use prescription medication, but also if you're in the armed forces as well. I know someone who lost their daughter because she went overseas to serve her country for 6 months and came back and they charged her with neglect.
What? This is crazy. I mean, it seems like we're painting our veterans out as terrorists. They're losing their rights and they're just trying to stand up and fight, for our country, and we're going to treat them this way. It's blowing my mind.
And the thing is the Social Security Act, Title IV Social Security Act, is where the veterans' money comes from. So that when they become veterans or retired, it's where they're supposed to be getting their pensions and that from. But they're not getting it because your government is taking it and putting it into Child Protection Services, adoption incentives instead.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And we have things like Common Core. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Common Core or not, but Common Core, it creates a national standard of where every state has to basically follow this certain standard. And the whole idea was meant to make it so somebody in New York knows the same as somebody in Washington State. And if a third grader moves, that third grader has the same information and they can just pick right up into the curriculum. But the problem is the program has been, first of all, I disagree with the fact that the national government should have anything to do with state-level education. I don't think that the federal government needs any involvement whatsoever in state education or the education of our children in general. I disagree with that totally. But, and in my opinion, we should probably abolish the Department of Education because we were fine without it before. And I just think it's a big waste.
We need to abolish Child Protection Services and make them not like independent agency run by the citizens of that state, and I'm not talking about like your average neighbor or whatever. I'm talking about it should be run by doctors or people that are educated in the field of neglect, because what's going on is a lot of the cases that I've been dealing with, there seems to be a pattern, and that pattern that keeps coming up is that what's going on is every time they get a court over it, it's in civil court. Why are Child Protection Services taking families to civil court when they take their children? If you look at the definition of child abuse and neglect, it's actually a criminal charge.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
why
and it
is it
should
going
be
into criminal court? And the reason we think it's not going into criminal court is because the United States Constitution does not apply to civil court. It only applies to criminal court. So if they come in and take your child without a warrant, and you turn around and say, well, that's a violation of my Fourth Amendment right, they can turn around and they can say, well, actually it's not, because it doesn't apply in the court system that you're in.
Holy cow! So they're finding a loophole around it. So, and it should be all done in criminal court. Obviously, if somebody was abusing their child for real and legitimately, then they should be prosecuted and go to jail. But I mean, obviously, they're trying to bypass that by doing it in civil court, and that means it's about money. At that point, it's about money. So,
and do you know how you can also tell it's about money? Because every time they terminate parental rights and put the child in a foster care home, that parent then has to pay child support to the foster family.
And I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if they did something criminally wrong, but it has nothing to do with money. I mean, it's a criminal punishment. So if they are sent to jail at that point for neglecting or abusing their children or something, and the judge at that point deems that they have some kind of reparations that they need to pay to the victim, the kid, then child support is fine. But I don't think that there's any reason why we have to do that in civil court.
Yeah, why isn't it in criminal court? And it's they police themselves. They show up without warrants. They show up without warning, on the whim of an anonymous tip. And we're obviously, I've been doing a lot of research on child protection services over the last 8 months, and I know their methods. I've read all their manuals. I know a lot about them. I've become this big walking CPS library. But what's going on is that the social workers, if your case is closed, they're ringing in anonymous tips themselves and telling on families.
Man. So anonymous tips for CPS, is that enough justification for them to actually search your house without a warrant?
It shouldn't be, but they seem to think it is. You'd think that if they were doing a proper investigation, they'd come around and they'd do what's called a welfare check, and they would do that obviously without letting you know, because if you're hitting your child or have a messy house or whatever, you shouldn't. They don't want to give you any warning because you could clean it up or you could put it on an act. I understand that completely, but what I don't understand is why I could ring up CPS, their 1-800 child abuse hotline number, tell them that there's someone hitting their child, and they'll walk in and they'll take that child, and then they will open the investigation.
See, I totally disagree without having to get a search warrant to do a search. I mean, if you have probable cause, go to a judge, get a search warrant. It's a simple freaking process. It doesn't make any sense why we're not doing that. This is a gross violation of the Fourth Amendment, and not only that, but just your human right to privacy. I mean, the fact that they can just come in, barge in, and there's no consequences. I mean, that right there is totally unconstitutional.
But because it's held in civil court, the Constitution doesn't apply.
Well, that's a branch of the federal government, isn't it? Or is that state? It's
state.
Okay, so if as far as through the state, I mean, they're still bound by the same constitutional stuff as well, as far as right to privacy, need a warrant, things like that. So regardless, the agency works for the state, and those things in the Constitution protect you from. In your state constitution, protects you from your state government, and the federal constitution protects you from the federal government. So the act of them doing it, that is what's prohibited. And I can see where you're coming from as far as them trying to say that it's not a violation because they're putting it in civil court, but I still think it is. The act is, regardless of what court you put them in.
So I'll give a little scenario here. You're sitting at home, suddenly there's a knock on the door. Now, you're just an average American citizen who works 9 to 5, has a couple of kids, does the right thing, Suddenly there's a knock on the door. You open it up and there's a social worker with a police officer. They say, we're here to do a welfare check, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do? You're going to let them in because you don't want to be in trouble, because you don't know about the corruption of CPS, because it's not very widely known. Everyone knows that they don't do their job, but no one actually knows how deep the corruption goes. So they come in, they do a welfare check, they take your child. You can't afford an attorney. So you go to the legal aid office and you hire what we call a public pretender, which is a legal aid lawyer or a court-appointed attorney. Now, these court-appointed attorneys act in the best interest of the court, not the client, because it's what they're paid to do. That's why they get such a minimum, and they're just looking for a quick close. So it's hard. There's no help out there. There is not much help, and there is not much education, and that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm trying to educate everyone how corrupt CPS is, so people can know what to do. Because people are letting them in without a warrant because they're not, they don't know their procedures, they don't know their methods, they don't know what they're doing there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I think the important lesson here is to know your rights, and that's a big message that I hope to educate on this show. Obviously, CPS they have corruption just like every other government organization. There is corruption in all of them, because they're ran by people, and people are subject to corruption. But the biggest thing here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. They own the courts. They own the court-appointed attorneys. They own the psychologists. They own the hospitals. They own the schools, because they all come under the same roof.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the biggest thing here, though, is education of your rights. Though, I mean, you have an absolute right to privacy. You can say no if they search you, and I do not comply to searches. I do not consent to any searches or seizures. I never do, and I never will. And to me, it doesn't matter. I will, even if I'm totally innocent, I will never ever submit, because they're all inquiring. The whole reason why they want to search you is to find out if there's anything that they can arrest you on or hassle you about. And you never know if you'll run into one of those people that will create a situation and maybe plant some evidence, or you may be in a violation of a law that you don't even know about, because every day we have our politicians that are making new laws, passing laws. We have 28,000 pages in Obamacare. How in the world are you supposed to know what's in that? I think it was 21,000 actually, but that's a stack of papers like 7 feet tall. There's no way that anybody is sitting down and reading every page of that, not to mention every other law that's passed. So with that in mind, you could be violating hundreds of laws right now and not even know. So why in the world would you allow CPS or the police inside your home voluntarily, even though you feel coerced and it was unexpected, and you just weren't, you didn't know your rights on it? But don't let them in. You do not have to submit unless they show you a warrant, in which case they have the right to come in. So, I mean, as far as that, so what are some other things that you guys got going on, and how can people get involved to help out your organization, Matt?
People can get involved. We are screening out for every couple of radio shows I do. I call out and ask if there are, like I said, CPS, they own the court systems in civil court, so you get a public pretender. And I'm actually here in Texas helping someone at the moment, and an attorney wanted a $10,000 retainer just to look at her case. So, I always ask if there's any family attorneys out there that, what's an hour to an attorney just to sit down and look over someone's paperwork and say, hey, file this or file that, and not charge them anything for it. Or write, we need people who can write advocation letters on behalf of people. I know I've spoken to a few people running for office around the place saying, can you write this family an advocation letter? And they go, we don't know what good it'll do because we're not in office yet. And I turned around and I said, hey, I'm a nobody. And I wrote an advocation letter the other week, and I had a Child Protection Services case closed from one letter. So, all you need to do is pop in there that you're running for office, and that should be enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great way to get involved, guys. If you are an attorney, or if you have the time on your hands to write letters for people, or even just advocate for people, get out there and tell people other people's stories. Spread the message about that. I highly recommend that you add Matt Virgiin on Facebook. By the way, Virgiin is spelled Virgiin on Facebook. And you can get involved with him that way. I think that's a great way to do it. But at this point, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more with Matthew Virgiin after this. It should be about a minute, so we'll be right back.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
And we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. Okay, so, it looks like Matt Virgiin just dropped off the line here. So, hey, Matt, if you're out there, you can give us a call back. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. And anybody else out there that would like to join in and join the conversation, feel free. I have here another awesome guest here on the line here, Rick Halley. He's on the line. He wants to talk about I-594 and the Second Amendment. Are you there, Rick?
I am.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm doing great.
I appreciate you calling in today. So I know you want to talk some about I-594, and I heard your speech that you were giving about that at the gun rights rally, and I'd like to have you tell just a little bit more about it than what I've said, because I know I know some about it, but I haven't done probably as much research on it as you have. So what are some of the things that this law will do?
Well, I'll go a couple of things I mentioned yesterday. Let me run through here and look at this. If you're under 18 years old, you're a hunter. You've gone out, you've taken your safety classes and your hunter safety course and purchased your license to hunt. If you are to, let's say for instance, your parents have 100 acres, and you want to go out on the back of your property there and go hunting, you can't do so. If this law gets passed, your parents will have to be standing there with you at all times. So that's one instance. That's one problem with it. Another one, which seemed to, the crowd yesterday seemed to get a little riled up about, was if you want to loan a firearm to a friend of yours to go hunting, you can't do so unless you actually go out there with them to the place that they're going to be hunting and hand it to them at that area. You can't give it to them at home and them leave. If you do, then you are required to do a background check and a transfer before you do so. And of course, afterwards, when they bring your firearm back to you, you have to go through another background check and a transfer to get your firearm back.
That's unbelievable.
It's just absurd.
Yeah, and I don't understand how they think this is actually going to prevent any kind of crime whatsoever. Like criminals are actually going to do that.
They're not. And we already know this. With all of these laws, they only affect the law-abiding citizens because the criminals, they don't pay attention to them. And if you go back and look at the statistics, they bear that out. I mean, there's like 1% of firearms transferred through anything that this background check would even require. And for that 1%, they're just going to avoid it, and they're going to go someplace else.
Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
No, what it will do, though, is it's going to limit you and me and every other law-abiding citizen from being able to purchase, to go out there and purchase our firearms without having to go through all these steps in order to do so, which, of course, that's what they want us to do. They want that because by making it more difficult, that reduces the number of firearms available.
Yeah, and it's not designed to keep guns. It's not designed to keep guns out of criminals' hands. It's designed to keep guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands. So, Rick, as far as for Gun Rights Coalition, how can people get involved? What are some of the things that people can do? I know you guys got the Facebook and everything, so do you have website addresses and whatnot that people can go to?
Certainly. If you're looking at the Stop I-594, we're working on a website for that particularly because that's a big issue for us here in Washington. StopI594.org or .com, either one works, for that. And as soon as we get a good page up for that, that'll be specific information just on I-594. Currently, that is actually being forwarded to gunrightscoalition.org. And with gunrightscoalition.org, we are working on these issues everywhere. It doesn't matter. Something I mentioned yesterday is our gun rights they are an inherent right for all of us. And it is not something that it's not a county issue, it's not a state issue, it's not a city issue, it's not even a national issue. This is an inherent right for all of us. Therefore, anytime our rights are being attacked, we need to fight it, and it doesn't matter if it's here, New York, California, New Jersey, Connecticut. It doesn't matter where it is. We have to fight it.
Yes, sir. And I totally agree with that. And I just want to say, Rick, thanks for hosting that event yesterday. That was really fun. I had a real good time there, and I thought that it was really well put together, and you just did an awesome job hosting it. So thanks for doing that. Do you guys have any other events coming up that we should know about?
I think we are going to, and I think it's May 31st. I think the Libertarian Party is putting together a deal here in Seattle on May 31st. We're going to try and be there for that. We also have April 19th, Shot Heard Around the World, which we're going to be, and that's going to be all across the United States. We're going to be encouraging everyone to get out there for those events. Right here in Vancouver, we actually have an event set up for that at Esther Short Park. And then shortly before the primaries, we're definitely going to be getting out there and doing something because we want people looking at the candidates that are going to support our rights. And so shortly before the primaries occur, we're going to be setting something up as well. That hasn't actually been set up yet, but that'll be that's something we'll be working on here probably the next 2 weeks to get that put in place.
Yes, sir. As far as those other events, though, I'm actually planning on being at the Libertarian Party meeting on the 31st of May, and I'll actually be at the gun rally on April 19th. So I look forward to seeing you out there, Rick. But hey, I got Matthew Virgiin back on the line here. I got to let you go, Rick. But thanks for calling in, and like I said, feel free to call in anytime. I appreciate what you're out there doing, man. So thanks again, everybody, and everybody support him. So all right, at this point, I got Matt on the line here. Hey, Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I am here.
All right. Hey, I'm not sure what happened with the line there, but I appreciate you calling back.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I think it must be an American-made cell phone.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see how it is. All right. By the way, if everybody who doesn't know, Matt is from I can't speak, Australia, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been here in the United States for 2 months now. And I am absolutely loving your country. It's beautiful. You know, I've been to 6 states already, and I'm very much wanted in a lot more. There seems to be no rest for me. But yeah, no. So what were we covering before the phone cut out? Sorry, we were on a tangent and I lost you.
We've talked about a lot, but one thing I wanted to ask, and I first of all, what actually brought you over here? I know that you said 2 months ago. So what brought you this way?
What brought me this way was this. I specifically came to this country to help families over here dealing with child protection services.
Yes, sir. Okay. So as far as just generally here, what are some things as far as differences between us and Australia? What are things that you've noticed about different from the countries?
You all drive on the opposite side of the road. You have no metric system. You still have dollar bills. It seemed, and I say this to every American, when you kicked out the British, you kicked out the language as well. It seems you spell a lot of things differently and don't have very good pronunciation.
Okay.
I don't know how many listeners you have, but I'm probably annoying some Americans right now. But
it's fun, and it's fun to be different. There's no problem with us, razzing each other every now and then about differences across the pond or across the world. It's one thing I think is crazy though, is a big difference is what happened in Australia with gun rights. I know that you guys aren't allowed to have firearms over there, at least not rifles, from what I understand. Is that correct?
You can have rifles, but I'm not really into the whole gun rights thing. I tell you what, when we fix child protection services, I'll join you all with with gun rights. That can be next. But what happened was there was a massacre in Port Arthur, and once again, like over here, they reckon it was a conspiracy to take away our guns and that. And a lot of Americans do ask me about this, and basically what I say is that shootings went down, but boomerangings went up.
Well, anyway, yeah, I think it's awesome that you're over here and you're working to help get people's kids back, and especially, I'm sure you're looking at the cases and you're trying to get people's kids back who deserve it, obviously. So I just think it's a
neutral party. What you call a neutral party. There are bad parents out there and there are good parents out there. What they should be doing is taking the children away from bad parents and not placing them with bad parents, and leaving the good parents. And you know what I mean. It's so many cases where we're taking children from good parents and placing them into foster care where they're being abused, and they're not removing them because they don't get an incentive for that. So it's a catch-22 situation.
Yeah. That's really crazy too, because they incentivize them to take the kids away from the good parents, and then they put them into foster care, which is notorious for kids being abused, and then from there these foster parents are incentivized to keep being foster parents because they're being paid from the government to do that and everything, but there's no incentive to take away those kids from that bad situation, so they're not doing it. I find that really, really disturbing, but as far as some other things, and I know I was talking about the collectivization of your children, and to me this thought is really, really disturbing. And we have here a clip from the former Massachusetts Education Secretary, Paul Reville, and he's talking about how your children belong to us, and it's very similar to the whole Melissa Harris Perry, I think is her name, but it's very similar to her thing. But I have a quick clip here. I'll go ahead and play it for you guys.
There's always a small voice, and I think these voices get amplified in the midst of these arguments, of people who were never in favor of standards in the first place and never wanted to have any kind of testing or accountability, and those voices get amplified, but those are a tiny minority. The overwhelming majority of teachers are saying, this is something, as Toby said, that makes sense. I mean, again, the argument about where it came from, I think, privileges certain sort of fringe voices about federalism and states' rights and things of that nature, when really what we're doing at the national level here now, state by state, is what a lot of our states thought made sense individually. Why should some towns or cities in states have no standards or low standards, and others have extremely high standards, when the children belong to all of us and would move. And the same logic applies to the nation. And it makes sense to educators, it makes sense to policymakers, and it's why people voluntarily have entered into this agreement. So it's less about where it came from and more about, okay, now that we've settled on this as a set of targets, what are the strategies we need to implement to be successful at it? Because educators and students want to be successful.
So this is talking about Common Core, and again, it's just this recurring theme that your children belong to us, they don't belong to you, and it's this collectivization of it. My thoughts on Common Core, and I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Matt, but my thoughts on Common Core is that it's total indoctrination of children. So, and we couple this with things like CPS, where they're kidnapping our children, taking them away from good parents and putting them into the system, and these kids end up screwed up way worse than if they were with their parents. And then you couple that with Common Core, and we're teaching our kids with a liberal spin on it. We're teaching our kids like the constitutional amendments that are wrong. It's not like I saw on an article one thing that they were talking about how the Second Amendment, the right of the militia to keep and bear arms, or the militia has a right to keep and bear arms. That is not what the Second Amendment says. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I know it's, Second Amendment and gun rights isn't your thing, Matt, but as far as these indoctrination, kidnapping things, collectivization of our children, what are your thoughts on Common Core and everything like that?
Common Core? I haven't really looked into it, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Common Core is it's like a set of standards that they're trying to use to basically educate our kids all the same around the nation. And the problem is that it's been hijacked. Not only should it not be federalized, the states should be, in my opinion, allowed to educate their children however they see fit. But they're using these national standards to basically, spread misinformation, change things in history, change the Constitution in their textbooks, and they're basically standardizing the curriculum. So you have to read these specific books, at this specific grade, and the big problem with that is obviously other than all the stuff that I already spoke about, is we're training kids to think the same way, read the same books, have the same experiences, and there's no diversity in our education anymore. We're not going to have as big of a diversity in our education, so we're going to have less creativity, less innovations, less inventions. There's going to be less of everything because everything is all compartmentalized and broken down to what we have to teach our kids. And we're not allowed to have, free will of our own education. So I think that's disturbing. What are your thoughts, Matt?
It depends on the way you look at it, really. Like coming from a Commonwealth, Australia is a Commonwealth. So we have states, but we also have one territory and two territories, and so basically the education system, it's the same, but it's different depending on where you go, because there's public schooling, which you call government schooling over here, and then there's private schooling. And I went to private school for a majority of my life, but then in the last year I did schooling. I was in government schooling. And in private schooling, they taught us, the earth is only 6,000 years old because of the Bible and that sort of thing. But then you go to public school and they turn around and say, 68 million years ago, and the dinosaurs ruled the earth. And, and it's teaching two different things, but the same thing, you know what I mean? Like, it happened, but there's time difference, sort of, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think one philosophy is that, both philosophies should be taught, or all of them, all theories should be taught. My thing is that they should all be allowed to be taught. I totally disagree with saying that this is what you will teach. you'll teach this theory, like, for example, if the theory of evolution, okay, so if you believe that evolution is the way things happen, and I don't really know. I have no idea. I typically lean towards evolution, but I wouldn't say that that's the only theory that you should be allowed to teach. You should be able to teach all of them if you choose to, one of them if you choose to, because they're theories. Nobody really knows. So
that's right. And well, I mean, with Darwin's theory of evolution, he went to the fossil record, of course, and he tried to back it up with facts. And if you read Origin of Species and you look at it, it does make sense. But why aren't people asking the question? Okay, maybe there was evolution, but how do they know it wasn't a god that placed the original basis of that evolution on the earth and let it branch out by itself?
Yeah, exactly. But my biggest problem with Common Core is that it standardizes these things. So not even just these kind of theory things, but if there's any disagreement that could be made on an issue, and they pick one side or the other, and that's the side they decide to teach, there's no room, there's no wiggle room. You can't choose to change, to teach the other side of the argument because it's not part of the curriculum. So we're not giving people a chance to critically think about issues. They're just being told this is the way it is, and this is one side that we're telling you it is. And the worst part about it is some of this information is absolutely false, like I said, how they're misrepresenting our Constitution and things like that.
Yeah, and the thing about that is it doesn't leave room for imagination or to study because, like you said, with evolution and the origin of species, and then there's also creation and creationists and that sort of thing. But it doesn't give anyone the room to come up with their own theory or studying. So what's even the point?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think overall it's a bad thing for our country, and our children are obviously the most important resource that we have as a nation, and we need to protect them. We need to protect them with from CPS if that's what it is. If CPS is corrupt in doing that, but we also need to protect them from getting a bad education and being dumber than the generation before them. This is a terrible thing in my opinion, and. Anyway, just so you know, everybody out there, I wanted to point out the fact that you also have a website, GoFundMe. It's a place where people can help and donate some money. It's GoFundMe.com 53JMY8. So if you go there, you can donate to the cause and help these guys out. And they have a video on there. It has a lot more information on it. I believe it's one of your podcasts on Child Protective Services.
The GoFundMe, that was because we were volunteers. That was my fund to get me over here to Australia.
Oh, okay. So is this already done then?
Yeah, no, that GoFundMe. Sorry, I should have actually I didn't know that was still included in the article that I sent you, the information that I sent you. No, but we are a legitimate non-for-profit. We have our registration numbers and everything on standby, and at the moment we are looking for people to help us out, like obviously businesses and that. If they want a tax write-off, they can come to us, and the money goes towards things like our event that we have in DC, giving a chance to people who can't afford to travel to sit and listen to our congressional educational panel, or it's to provide emergency housing for people, or food, or if someone wants to file their court case and they can't afford to file their petition because it's $400 or $500, that's when we step in and we help them out when we can.
I see. Okay, well, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to tell my audience about things that are going on, or anything else that they can do to contact you, or if they have a situation that's going on, what they can do to maybe help get you involved or anything like that?
If you have a situation in Child Protection Services, the best advice I can give you is record and document everything. And I mean record and document everything. They call you in for a 5-minute meeting and all they want to do is run over some paperwork, you record it. They come knocking on your door, you record it. You go into court with them, you record it. You record and document everything. And that's well within your rights as a human citizen, as an American citizen, to document and record everything. record everything, because I know of so many social workers. I was talking to someone in California today where their social worker committed perjury several times in their case, and then they played the recording to them in the courthouse, and the social worker's jaw dropped.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So
document everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. You know, I personally believe that you should, anytime you're dealing with a government official, police officer, CPS, anything like that, you should absolutely record them. And as far as you were saying, as an American citizen, you have a right, you have an absolute right to record your public officials in performance of a public act, or when they're acting on behalf of the public. So when they're on duty, basically, things like that, you are allowed to record them. And also, if they're in public or in your home, you have a right to record them anyway, because there's no expectation of privacy in your home if they're there or in public. So you can record. Feel free to record. Record all you want. The only problem with that, though, is that there are some people, some states that have like wiretapping laws, and unless you tell somebody that you're recording them, you could be charged with a felony wiretapping charge. So just keep it in mind. Know your laws when it comes to that. So Matt, as far as one more time, can you give your website, all your contact information for my listeners, so that they can get in contact with you, check out your show, find the stuff that you're doing, and any other things that you have going on? Can you tell my listeners that stuff?
Yeah, the best way to get in contact with me is via Facebook or via email, and my email is mattqld2011@gmail.com. That's mattqld2011@gmail.com. Then, there's my Facebook link, which I'll put on your Facebook page in your group as well. I have my regular show every Monday on Forecast TV called Thunder from Down Under, and we are full aware that my radio producer didn't think about what he was doing when he did that. And when you type in Thunder from Down Under, you actually get a strip club over in Las Vegas. So I'm not affiliated with them whatsoever. That has nothing to do with me.
Okay, so not affiliated with you. Okay.
No.
That's funny.
Well, maybe for the right price. No. Anyway, our organization is called We the People Family Preservation Incorporated, or Inc. It's based out of Ohio. It is a registered non-for-profit. You can find us on the website. I will tell you that there is some clowns out there that think it's funny to harass and intimidate people on Facebook. They're out there, so if you see anything from them, they have nothing to do with us. They're just a bunch of people who have nothing else to do, and I understand you're dealing with the same thing at the moment.
Yes, sir.
For all the people that are following me on Facebook that I've been helping, I want to say thank you, especially to Chelsea and Chris Gannon and Rosie. The 10th, we've got our Congressional Educational Panel. So we're actually going to be in Congress. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not because of my leg, but we will have speakers in front of Congress, and there will be congressmen and senators there in the room that we'll be speaking in front of. So we're not sure who's attending yet. But especially for you talking about the gun rights and that sort of thing, you know what? If people who are involved in gun rights and want to show up to our event, please feel free to. Because when we don't just deal with child protection services, we also deal in domestic violence. We deal with cancer. Nick Larson, who you had on the show before, I know him. I've been doing some work with him. He has his autism talk coming up this Friday, where they'll be raising money for autism. So, if anyone wants to show up our event, bikers, truckers, gun lobbyists, whoever, are welcome to show up, because the more numbers there speaking about the problems we have is the best way how we're going to make an impact.
Absolutely. Yeah, and people have to get involved. People have to get out there and get on the move and do this stuff. Stand up for what's right.
What is see, this is what I don't get with you Americans. When you hold a protest, you do it on Facebook. This I Will Not Comply, which has over 60,000 people in it. Why aren't you all marching into D.C.?
Oh, believe me, there have been quite a few marches. But as far as the one you're talking about, that's I will not comply with Obamacare. So that one, in order to have that protest, all you have to do is nothing. You don't have to do anything, because if you don't sign up for Obamacare, you've successfully protested against Obamacare.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's plenty of things, events that people go out to. We had not too long ago in D.C. we had a veterans march in D.C. where
I heard about that.
Tons of veterans came down to the Capitol building. We well, I wasn't there obviously, but there was tons of veterans that removed barricades that were closing down national parks, and they threw all those barricades in front of the White House. I mean, there's tons of stuff that's happened. There was truckers that drove into Washington, D.C. that shut down the city basically with the amount of traffic that were in there. So there's a lot of stuff going on that people can get involved in, and I think that everybody should get out and do something like that. Obviously, you want to be lawful in what you're doing, but get out, get on the move, do something, actually stand up for something you believe in. If you have a cause, now's the time to stand up for it. And I think, Matt, you have a great one, and I really do appreciate what you're doing. And again, thanks a lot for coming on the show. If there's ever anything I can do, please let me know. I'd be happy to get the word out about whatever you need.
Definitely, just keep getting the word out about this, about what's going on with child protection services, because there is hundreds of parents out there that have personally come to me, plus thousands of more out there that don't know where to turn to or who to turn to, because they've been betrayed by the system that's taken their children. And the more people we make aware of this, the more chance that something's going to be done.
Yes, sir.
And the best voices in this movement are like myself, which are the neutral voices, because it didn't happen to us. So that means we're not just sitting there and having a whine about it. We believe that it always looks good coming from a third person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's good to have someone else in the picture there that is representing the whatever is the best interest for the kids, and you don't have any kind of governmental incentive to help out the family or help out the government. Nobody's subsidizing you or paying you in any way. So I think that's obviously the best situation. So now we have an impartial party, CPS, who's definitely impartial now, and they're supposed to be the third party. They're supposed to be the person that's there for their for the interest of the child, but now they're not. They're there to take the child because they're getting subsidized. But anyway, I sure do appreciate having you on, Matt. We got to cut to a quick commercial, then we're going to take a call from a listener. Anytime you want back on the show, you're more than welcome to, and I sure do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, and I just wanted to say we really appreciate this extra voice we now have. So expect your group numbers to go up quite a bit.
Oh, all right.
I have a very large followership. So.
Yes, sir. Well, I sure do welcome it, and anything I can do for you guys, I'm more than happy to do it. So, anyway, that was Matthew Virgiin. Please, check him out on Facebook, help out, support his group, and do what you can, even if it's just spreading the word. So, thanks again, Matt, for coming on the show, and we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere, everybody. We'll be back, and we're going to be taking some calls from listeners. So, we'll be right back.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
And we're back. I appreciate everybody sticking with us. So we have a listener on the line here. I believe this is Nick again, who we just spoke with earlier in the show. Are you there, Nick?
I am here. You just can't get rid of me, I tell you. But I was listening to you and Matt talk, and Matt's right. I'm actually good friends with him, and I had him on my show, and he isn't kidding when he says your numbers will jump. But one thing I wanted to comment on, or I don't know if you want to talk about this still, but you were referring to Common Core.
Oh yeah, go right ahead. What are your thoughts?
I think it needs to be abolished, for one. My wife is in college right now. She's getting her teaching degree, and we are literally seeing Common Core right from the textbooks. I mean, we're seeing how the government is telling these teachers how to teach our kids, and you see some of these problems or questions that they give children, especially math problems. And, when we were growing up, we always asked mom and dad for help on their math, and sometimes they could help, sometimes they couldn't. Now, with my parents, when they started mixing letters into it, they couldn't help. But now you get these new math problems that basically you have to solve 3 different math problems just to solve the original math problem that the original question was. Wow. Or
it's like advanced trigonometry or something like that?
No, it's all, this is like second grade level, second or third grade. I mean, it'll say like 12 plus 8 equals this, 5 plus 8 equals whatever. Yeah. And then you take the second column or whatever, and then you do something with it, and that's the answer. I don't know if you find the average or what it is, but when they send this home, when they send this homework home to the kids, there is no instructions for the parents on how to do this, because when I learned math, it was 2 plus 2 is 4, right? That's how I learned. Or 100 plus 100 is 200. But them it's like this equals what? It's like, huh?
I think some of this is intentional, though. I feel, and maybe this is just me, being a little crazy, I guess, but I think that the government is intentionally trying to separate parents from the educational process. So they're doing things like this to basically remove the parents from it, because if you can't figure out how to help your kids, obviously the kids are going to stop asking you for help first and foremost, but you're not going to be able to provide that help. So they're teaching you your kids a totally different style of education than what you and I learned growing up, and I don't think that there's a need for this. On top of which, they're awarding points for effort, basically. Like, if you get the answer wrong to a math problem, but you showed that you tried and you showed your work, and even as long as you show how you got there, then it doesn't matter. You still got it right. I have to tell you, there are winners and losers in life, and I totally disagree with this whole concept of, here's your participation ribbon. I think we're breeding a society of losers at this point, that they're okay with losing because, hey, I got a ribbon for losing. It's cool.
Right. Yeah. See, and you know what? You're not crazy, because I think the same. I think the same thing too. I mean, I have a 6-year-old daughter who actually is going to be turning 7 tomorrow. But she was in t-ball, and I had another daughter that was in cheerleading, and they did competitions. Well, everyone got a trophy, everyone got a ribbon. How is this a competition? Everyone got the trophy, and everyone got the same ribbon. I mean, does losing suck? Well, yeah, it does, but you learn from it, and to make you learn from your mistakes so you can be a winner next time you play, or whatever it is in life.
There have to be consequences for our actions. I mean, that right there is what you're teaching kids when you give them a ribbon for nothing. Is that there are no consequences. It doesn't matter. Little Jeff over there, Jeffy didn't practice. He decided to play video games and eat chocolate cake all day, and Michael over there, little Mikey, he decided that he was going to practice all day long, and they both got the same trophy. They both got the same ribbon. There was no consequence of actions. So, if you lose, you should lose. You shouldn't get anything. I honestly, if one day I have kids and my kids get a participation ribbon, I'm taking it away because I do not want them to get a ribbon just for showing up.
Well, you might have a little flack from the kids for doing that, but yeah, I see what you're saying. School is not school is originally designed to teach kids and for them to learn. And sorry to say, but losing is part of the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
But now let me ask you a question. When's the last time you heard of a PTA meeting going on?
A parent-teacher association meeting? I'm pretty sure you can still...
I was wondering if you knew what that meant. Not many people nowadays know what that means, but yeah.
Yeah, my parents had to go to quite a few of those, but
the president of it.
yeah. As far as that, I obviously I don't have any kids right now, so I don't really know. I think that you can still run to join the Parent-Teacher Association or something. You can do that kind of stuff. From what you just said, you're the president of it, right?
No. My mom was the president of it. No. I wasn't. There actually is no more PTAs.
Really?
Yeah. Good. Unless you go to a very rural countryside area of the country, then you might see some PTAs or whatever, but in your bigger cities or even populations of 20,000 or more, there is no more PTAs. Parents, the generation of parents today, my generation, apparently we decided, hey, who cares about our kids? We'll just let the government teach them, and we'll go off and do whatever, and not be involved in their education or anything, or it could just be the fact that, both parents are out working, trying to make ends meet, and they have no time. Mm-hmm. But, see, the high school I went to, and this is a great example of why PTAs and parents and teachers should get together and come up with a curriculum and not a federalized curriculum. The city I grew up in, just, small town, but maybe 20,000 people, if that, I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's a small town. Other people, that's a metropolis. But the high school I went to, or the town I lived in, had the State Academy for the Deaf in it. It was in that town, and my high school offered 3 languages. As you know, we all go through high school and we have to take 4 languages: German, mm-hmm. Spanish, and now most schools will put in French, but mine dropped French and put in sign language because it was culturally relevant to the area, to the location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the odds of you in that town, the odds of you running into someone that is deaf are very, very likely, and that you would need to know sign language.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, the one thing is being allowed to have the freedom of choosing what you educate your kids. If you're nowhere near a French-speaking nation, if like for example, if you're in Texas, the odds of you running into somebody that speaks French are pretty low, unless you're in a place other than that, or it's a rare occurrence or something. The odds for you to need to know French are very low. But sign language, I live right next to a school for the deaf. That would come in handy for me. So it just makes sense to give us the freedom of choice.
Well, and see, that's the thing. A lot of this is just common sense. It's just common sense educating, or education. And, obviously, we know the federal government has no common sense. I mean, they lost that a long time ago. But, it's especially, and especially when it comes to kids with autism. I know Matt mentioned it in the show I'm doing on Friday, and I won't bore you with the details. But, the thing is, you have children now the odds of autism have dropped. Now your odds are 1 in 68 instead of 1 in 88. Now it's 1 in 68. Now you have all these children that have learning. It is learning disability. It's a social disorder. Some kids can't learn very well, or they have to be taught a different way. And the Common Core curriculum does not cater to that. It it caters to basically the lowest common denominator, or basically the public. It doesn't take into account if you have autism or ADHD or cerebral palsy or mental retardation or something like that, which that is actually a medical diagnosis. But none of that in Common Core caters to that or even addresses it. It's basically, here's a test. I'm going to teach you how to take this test. I'm going to teach you what the answers are in this test, so you can take the test and get it all right, and we can get more funding.
You're training kids to take a test, but not only just what you were talking about, because as far as teaching to the lowest common denominator, you're teaching to the slowest kid in the class on average, basically on like a national average. They've done studies to find out how quickly you should teach, but the problem is you're also teaching too slow for the kids that are really gifted, so you have these kids who may start having behavioral problems now because they're bored in class. You're teaching too slow for them, and you're not keeping up with what they're trying to do. We're teaching too slow for them. So it's got problems all through it, and the issue is that it has no flexibility. It doesn't offer the ability for us to just choose what we're going to teach our kids, what is the most relevant thing for us, and it limits. And I'm not a fan of limiting education. It seems like on paper it should be good and it should be a good thing, but it's really not. I think it's devastating for us.
Right. It's kind of sad where people that live in supposedly the greatest nation of the world, or the freest nation of the world, have to forcefully or unwillingly, take their kids to a school that they don't want to take them to. I mean, American parents should have the right and choice to send their kids to whatever school they want that they deem is best for them, whether it's online, private school, public school, 20 miles down the road, whatever. I mean, if the parents are willing to drive, then why not?
Yeah. Well, hey, Nick, I gotta wrap this up, but I sure do appreciate you calling in. Can you give my listeners your show information so they can check out your show?
Okay. Well, the best way is you can come listen to my Talk for Autism show. It's going to be a 12-hour radio marathon. It's going to be on Friday, April 11th, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. You can go to our website. It's talk4autism.com. You can listen. You can donate. 100% of the proceeds are going to the National Autism Association.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I sure do appreciate it. I'll be checking your stuff out, so I'm really excited. And thanks for giving us a call, Nick. And I do really appreciate it, you calling in. So, all right, at this point, we're going to cut to the last segment of the show. I'm going to try to cram this all in here. It's a listener challenge. Here we go.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge. Listener challenge.
All right, this is a segment of the show where I challenge you to get on the move. So your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to write your congressmen and women and tell them to oppose any new gun control. Ask them where they stand on gun control. Where do they stand on universal background checks? Do they support constitutional carry? Make them answer these questions. Don't let them evade. Be direct and keep asking if they don't answer your question. So, don't take no for an answer. Let them know that their position and their actions will dictate how you vote in the next election. If they're on the opposite end of the political spectrum, challenge them. More importantly, if they support gun rights, thank them for it. I've posted on our Twitter page a representative tool, Write Your Representative tool. So just go to twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow and use it. It tells you who your representatives are, and it makes it easy for you to write them. So don't forget, go to twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow and write your representatives. And go ahead and follow us on Twitter while you're at it. That's this week's challenge. Make sure you stand up and speak out. Get on the move. And I really do appreciate our special guest, Matthew Virgiin, for coming on the show today. Make sure you support his stuff. And don't forget to check us out here at OnTheMoveShow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow, and Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.